Hi, I'm Mike McLean. Welcome to the Short Circuit podcast brought to you by Swift Aircraft. In this series, we'll be chatting with a variety of people from all walks of life, but who all have one thing in common: aviation. We'll discuss how and why they got into aviation, what or who inspired them, and what they would say to encourage young people to get involved. Flight fascinates many of us, and our guests will explain why they are compelled to look to the sky. Today's chat is with Nancy Bsales. These days, sustainability is a high-profile subject, and aviation is often an easy target for criticism as a carbon dioxide producer. So, what's going on in the USA on this matter? Well, Nancy will explain some of the activity going on in the business aviation sector. But before we start, I have a request. Please remember to click the like button, share with friends and colleagues, and subscribe. This really does help us get the word out. So, with that in mind, here goes. Good afternoon, good evening, and Nancy Bsales, welcome to the Short Circuit podcast. And I'm going to ask you with question one, and that is, who are you and what is your current role in aviation?
So you introduced me. So I'm Nancy Bsales. I've actually been involved in sustainability for close to 20 years now. Sustainability and business aviation. That's really where I have concentrated most of my time since 2004, is helping business aviation navigate, the future of aviation and the directions we're going with and the tools they can use to get us there.
Right.
Today, I actually am the COO at 4Air, which was launched about 4 years ago. As we started seeing the momentum around business aviation and sustainability and those goals towards things like 2050, we knew that the solutions needed to be streamlined and easily accessible to business aviation. So we launched 4Air, and we have, different programs within it that help navigate emissions and sustainability for today, tomorrow, and into the future. And That's really where we've been working. And that's I'm the COO at the company, and we've seen a lot of success in helping business aviation over the last few years.
Great. Okay. Well, we'll get into the details in a little bit, but first of all, I need to know a little bit more about you. What got you started in aviation? Did you fall into it? You born into it, or was it something you saw? So what was the spark? What got you?
I think I tripped into it. So my story probably isn't as exciting as some people would like to hear, but I actually went to school for fashion. I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. And what this is going to teach you is that you can always change your direction, right? You can always do something new and innovative. And I had 4 kids in 5 years.
Wow.
So I took a little bit of a break from working and then decided I would like to get back into working. I had a brother who worked at a fractional aviation company who had sold a share to a leader in industry, a technology company, had sold a share. And that person lived next door to somebody who was launching a carbon offset company.
Okay.
So using carbon offsets for, actually it was automobiles at the time. If you drove a car, you could calculate your emissions. And that technology leader kind of said to my brother at the time, like, I don't understand why we can't do this for business aviation and for my private jet that I just did through the fractional company. So that is where my new career got launched. My brother knew that I was interested in, investigating and finding something new, and connected the dots. And I was the 5th person to join a company back in 2004 called TerraPass, which was one of the first offset developers in the United States. And that is how, and I actually launched something called TerraPass for Aviation on behalf of them. And it evolved over the years. It evolved. They got sold. I always stayed in the industry. And then I was very fortunate to come together with Kennedy and be able to launch 4Air, because we knew that these solutions were such an important aspect for aviation, and that offsets weren't the only solution, and that we needed to grow it. So, and start to move into more sustainable aviation fuel and innovation. And I've been fortunate to be here ever since.
Okay, all right. I'm very chuffed actually. I'm really pleased that because part of the reason for this podcast is to make contact with the wider industry and the different branches of the industry. It's not all about pilots. It's not all about engineers. It's about everything else. So I'm really, really glad that we were put in touch together. And it sounds like a fascinating story. You've already gone or started answering the follow-on question, which I was going to have, of how you got started and stuff. One question, because people are going to want to know. So, do you fly yourself? Are you a pilot?
I do not. I am not a pilot. I have to say, I wish I met Kennedy and the group I'm working with 20 years ago, because I think I would have became a pilot. I love it. But what I've also learned is that, we've really mixed. Kennedy has such a strong base in aviation. I have such a strong base in sustainability that we came together really well.
Mhm.
I do wish that I had my pilot's license. They joke and say, "Oh, you can always get it." I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe I'm past that, but
Oh, never say never.
I'm happy to be a passenger. I'm happy to be the passenger when Kennedy is flying the Cirrus.
Well, that sounds like fun. I'm really glad that you're on here, and with the sustainability. I mean, I don't know if you've did any background checking on us with Swift Aircraft, but we're building this new aircraft which will have sustainable power options. So we're looking at electric motors and so on. But since you're talking about business aviation, then we're looking at larger scale aircraft. I'm guessing. So you're looking at 6, 8, 12 seater. That seems to be your territory.
Actually, I mean, sustainability is impacting everything from a two-seater, right, up to
Hmm.
turboprops and all the way up to, commercial airlines, right? It actually, everybody needs to be active in it.
Hmm.
So we actually work with operators from all different size aircraft. We work with OEMs, we work with corporate flight departments, FBOs on the ground to see what they're doing both on the ground and in the air. So sustainability affects every single piece of aviation. It is not just the larger aircraft or the Gulfstreams and the Dassaults and the Bombardiers and
Hmm.
Embraers of the world. It's really impacting every single aspect of flight.
Okay. The next question, the standard routine would be, so what developments do you see coming over the horizon? Yeah, enlighten me.
So I'm going to say, there's probably certain areas I'm stronger in than others in that. But, when you look at aviation and the goals they have in place, they kind of broken it up into like four segments, right?
Hmm.
Technology, sustainable aviation fuel, market-based measures, and operational, right? Those are the four areas that aviation knows we need to actually start to chip away at each of these areas to really get to change the energy landscape of how we're flying, change combustion on aircraft, and address, climate change and changing, the burning of fossil gen. So I'm going to say, when you talk about innovation, I think there's really three pieces. We hear a lot about hydrogen and electric aircraft, and we do know that that is probably part of the solution down the line, but it's going to take a long time to get there. Electric aircraft, they're going to be great for short flights, probably phenomenal for agricultural, right? There's pieces within aviation that electric aircraft are going to be a great solution for, but it's going to be a very small percentage. Same with hydrogen. We have a long way to go before we see hydrogen aircraft flying. You're talking probably 30 years down the line.
Hmm.
SAF, that is that near-term solution. And I think when we talk about innovation, it's about the innovation of the fuel we use to fly. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of change over the next 3, 5, 10 years. We're only at about 1% of global need for sustainable aviation fuel today. But what we're going to see is a quick evolution of the feedstocks being used for SAF, the fuels being used, the mandates coming that are pushing that envelope, as well as the incentives that are coming in the US, right? So we see mandates over in Europe and the UK, while we're seeing incentives in the United States and other places in the world. So we're going to start to see a big growth trajectory when it comes to sustainable aviation fuel. And we do know that that is the near-term solution for decarbonizing at this sector.
Okay. So for my education, when you talk about sustainable aviation fuel, What is it? Can you, if I've got a bucket of SAF, what's in there? Where did it come from?
So the thing to understand about SAF is or sustainable fuel is it's fuel that is produced from renewable sources, right? Rather being refined from petroleum.
Right.
Those renewable sources can be so many different things, right? It's a fossil-free fuel. As of today, we're only seeing blends, right? It's only certified to about a 50-50 blend as of today that can be used in the engines of today. So you'll have 50% sustainable fuel and 50% fossil blended together that can be put into the engine of an aircraft. To understand where does SAF come from, there's a lot of different feedstocks. So we have things today, what we're seeing is what they call FOGs, fats, oils, and greases. That is the source that is being used, and it's a reusable, right? So you're talking about things like cooking oils, and everybody hears the joke of the French fries of today or the jet fuel of tomorrow, right? But that is kind of the concept. It's whether it's animal fats or used cooking oils being used. But what we're going to start to see is different feedstocks. Municipal solid waste. We're going to see, ethanol to jet, woody biomass, right? And then really the excitement is power to liquids. That's coming really far. It's a little further ahead. It's a little more expensive. But this is the progression that we're seeing in sustainable aviation fuel. There's not going to be one feedstock. There is going to be hundreds of feedstocks. So, and that's the nice part that I like about SAF is that one, it can be produced locally, right? And the feedstock that's available to different regions can be used to produce that SAF.
Okay.
So if you are someone, municipal solid waste is a direction I think we see Europe and the UK going in. While in the US, I think we're going to see some moves towards ethanol and towards, right? Because agricultural, we're a very big farming. So
Right.
that's a good feedstock.
Yeah, I've been through Iowa. I've been to an ethanol plant.
So that's what that's where we're going to see a lot of categories of feedstocks come
Okay.
from.
All right. That's where the fuel comes from. So you, instead of digging it out of the ground, you're growing it out of the ground typically, or you're recovering something that we would automatically throw
Yep.
away. And then, so you turn that into a fuel, which is combusted in a piston engine or a turbine engine, but you're still getting hydrocarbon gas or exhaust coming out of it.
You
So,
are.
so why is that, in very simple terms, why is that better than oil coming out of the ground?
Well, and it's so interesting because where you're getting the reduction is in the life cycle, right? The reduction is coming from the production, not from the burning. And so from the tailpipe, it is still burning at the same level because it is certified as jet fuel. The carbon chain is jet fuel. So it's burning at the same, but it's in the life cycle that we're seeing that reduction.
Right.
And that's very important. And I think sometimes people just need to take some common sense and think. You're not digging fossil out of the ground. Sometimes, don't try to overthink. Just use some common sense to say, hey, is that a bad thing that we stop digging, fossil fuels out of the ground? No, that is not. It is not a bad thing, right? So I think that just use the common sense of, reusing, oils and fats and greases or finding ways to, it's like using a reusable paper towel, right? It's getting the same job done, but we didn't have to cut down a tree to get there.
Right. Okay. So it's a step forward. So we're not completely green. It's not. There's still a price to pay, but it's a lower price than what we're using at the moment.
It depends on the feedstock, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to depend on the feedstock. And what we're going to start to see is carbon intensities be increasingly better. So the carbon intensity is important. So the accounting of SAF or the documenting of sustainable aviation fuel is almost as important as the production. Is understanding that what the feedstock and how that feedstock impacts the carbon intensity score. So today's fuels are about 80% better than traditional Jet A, but in the neat, right? In the neat gallon, not when you're blending it, but when it's a full gallon versus a full gallon. There are some feedstocks and things like power to liquids coming or direct air capture that we're starting to see that those feedstocks, those carbon intensity scores may even go over 100, that you're actually, doing even more. So that's what we need to follow really carefully to see what's coming. And I'm going to jump into one other question you sort of asked is like, how do you get involved in aviation? When you're not a pilot, there is so much opportunity. I just heard recently about a group that went and spoke at a university, and kind of the group was like, how do I get involved in business aviation? I don't want to be a pilot. He said, well, what do you want to do? And, one was like, oh, I want to be an engineer. Okay, well, somebody has to develop the engines. Someone needs to develop, the landing gear. Someone needs, you're an engineer, you can, oh, I want to be an accountant. Well, somebody needs to look at the dollars and cents of, how to get that big thing in the sky. Just, flying an aircraft is an amazing feat, but it's not just a pilot that gets it up there. There are hundreds of people on the ground who help develop that aircraft, develop the fuels, look at the future of aviation, do the accounting, make sure that it's cost competitive, make sure that everybody who's working for an airline or working for a business aviation group is maybe getting their benefits. Anything you want to do in life, you can address aviation with.
Yeah. You've hit the core thing of the whole Short Circuit podcast, which is we're trying to get across the message that exactly what you said. No matter what you're interested in a specific field, there's a space for it somewhere within aviation or within aerospace. And we need those skill sets in aerospace because aviation is still, to a lot of people, it's still a mystery. I mean, I did just earlier on today, I Googled celebrities who are pilots in the UK, celebrities who are pilots. There was nobody that came up on quite an extensive list on Google, nobody under the age of 30.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I was going, okay, so if there aren't any influencers or celebrities that are out there that are getting involved in aviation, then there's no knock-on effect in young people. So that it becomes invisible. The fact that you're saying that you got to get this message out there, and you get across that you need an accountant, you need a painter, you need all the art skills as well as
You need every
everything's
it's an
there.
interesting thing too, and I'll speak to the team that we've built, right? So we've built a really, it's something that Kennedy and I launched 4 years ago. We built a great team around us. And you want to talk about youth having interest in sustainability, right? So there's been, and we've seen some of this, some protests out there, and the concerns of the younger generation of, aviation is not good for the environment,
Very
right?
much so, yeah.
So, the majority of our team is young. I think probably 8 out of 10 under the age of 35, right? Because, there's a nice cross between bringing sustainability to business aviation. So aviation as a whole, or business aviation, can continue to thrive, right? We can continue to thrive and fly differently. And we have an accountant on our team. We have someone who's going for their PhD at Embry-Riddle. We have 3 accountants on our team, because numbers matter, right? Numbers matter, both on the carbon intensity and the carbon calculation side as well. And so would you ever think a carbon accountant would find a career path in business aviation? Probably would have never put those two things together. And we have someone on our team doing that.
Yeah, it's not something that you would automatically think about, but it's so logical. It makes so much sense that you wonder, why didn't I think of that? On a personal level, I love it, but I think that it's become invisible to so many people, to such a large part of the population. And I don't really understand why. I've got a few theories, but I'm not too sure.
I love youth. You know what I have to tell you? I think one keeps me young and always thinking. It helps. I think it's going to help the whole entire industry. Like you said, we need more young people getting involved in aviation. And I just find that the innovation and the way they think is amazing. It's absolutely amazing, because they want this industry to continue, and they have really great ideas on how we can do that. And I think we need to listen. I think we need to listen and learn and evolve as an industry.
That's true. That's true. One of my previous guests said, instead of, he's addressing young people and saying that instead of thinking of aviation as the bad boy of the environment, look at aviation for what it is, and if it can improve, come and help us improve it.
Mhm.
instead of just sitting there
Be the
saying, no,
change.
yeah, be the change as
Be
opposed
the
to just
change.
demand it.
Yeah, no, and you know what, as much as people, and I always say, I think as a younger generation, they have to really think about what aviation has done, right? It's made it much smaller. Whether it's over social travel, that you just want to see the world, you get the opportunity, or the global opportunities that it's brought. If your concerns of, nobody should be flying, you have to look at the things like, eradicating things like polio. Do
Hmm.
you think that could have happened without flying? You look at, during COVID times,
Oh,
all the immunizations that were able to get to so many remote places because of business aviation and aviation as a whole.
mhm.
The innovations that come to commercial, that's, the one thing great about business aviation, it's much more agile, right? You can actually test, it's a great test bed for so much.
Hmm.
And so many benefits that have been across the board for all of aviation have come out of business aviation. So I always say be part of the change, and just remember that challenge brings opportunity. Anytime there's a challenge, it brings opportunity. And if you want to be an innovative 24-year-old coming out of college, join the aviation community,
Hmm.
because there is some challenges going on right now that we need that advancement, that excitement, and bring people into the industry to help us really change the energy landscape and change the way we fly.
Yep, I would agree with that. I mean, it is one of the, I was going to say a downfall, it's not the right word. I would say one of the drag factors in aviation is that there's an awful lot of nostalgia and looking back at the golden age of aviation and all this. But aviation has only been around for 121 years, really. Oh, heavier than air anyway. Being from the UK, and 120 years isn't old. Our houses are older than this. So being
Right.
nostalgic for something that's still quite young doesn't seem to make much sense. So we shouldn't have any sacred cows about these things. It's just a case of we did that, we learned from that. Let's look at something newer, brighter, more efficient, more effective, and that sort of thing.
Exciting. It's actually a really exciting place to be involved with. And I
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
what we have to bring to the youth and to STEM. And we need to help them understand that this is a really exciting area to be involved with.
Mhm.
Transportation is a benefit.
Yeah,
It's not a negative.
yeah.
And you can really be part of that change.
Good. All right. I think we concur on an awful lot of things, and I think you've delivered your message very succinctly. And I think I've got at least 3 T-shirts out of that. So,
I like that. I like that.
so I'm going to ask you the big question of the day, and I don't know if you've had a look at the website. So you've got the Swift Aircraft website, and if you go to the podcast page, you'll see on there the picture board, which is on our virtual control tower wall, which is all the pictures that all the guests have chosen. So this is the question for you, even though you're not a pilot, and that is, what's your favorite airplane and why?
I feel like I might want to kick the can forward on this one and make a decision. So my favorite aircraft and why.
Hmm.
So I'm going to say, and this is actually, I've had the opportunity to be brought up into a Cirrus, right? And it probably isn't an aircraft that somebody would choose, because I can say a Gulfstream 650. I can say the Praetor 600, which both of those I love for very different reasons. Beautiful aircraft, great range, innovation being built in those aircraft, the advancements that I see those companies doing, with their aircraft to make them more efficient, longer range, more comfort, bringing the world together. But watching the awe on my face personally, and other people that I've gotten the joy to go up in a small aircraft just to see a sunset, and to really see how beautiful the world is around me,
Hmm.
is why I'm going to say it's probably my favorite aircraft, because of the opportunity I got flying in it. That's really it. So I want to say that I am in awe of aviation. It's real to me, to this day, it still amazes me that this big tin thing goes up in the air. Whether I'm on my, Boeing aircraft, or, having the opportunity to fly on a Cirrus. So, but I'm going to go with the Cirrus. The SR-22, I think it is. I think that is the actual aircraft.
Right.
And more so just because of the opportunity I had to really enjoy the world around me while flying in it.
Okay, the Cirrus. Okay. Well, I can say that it's the first Cirrus going up on the board.
Okay.
Although what does fascinate me is that when I look at the board, so this is there's quite a few pictures up there now, and there are very few that have been repeated, and there are very few that I would have guessed at. You know, there's some weird and wonderful and eclectic choices out there. The Cirrus never crossed my mind that somebody would pick a Cirrus as their favorite aircraft.
Well,
So
it's probably because I'm not a pilot, maybe. Maybe that's the reason.
but that's makes it, even in my mind, that's even more valid. You know, it's just like, okay, so instead of coming at it from a technical purist pilot, or it's the the Rolls Royce of such and such or whatever,
Mhm.
if you're the passenger, if you're getting the passenger experience, and you're looking at just what makes it a nice plane for you, then that makes your choice as valid as anybody else's. So that's nice.
And
So
fortunately, I was brought up at Sunset in the
mhm.
Arizona area, and
Oh
it is
wow.
beautiful.
I must admit, Arizona it does do good sunsets, good landscapes, skyscapes. Yeah.
Yep. Sedona, the sunset, it couldn't have been better.
No, I've got a picture in my head now, so I'm going to listen. Nancy, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. We're getting short on time just now, so I'm going to wrap it up there. But I would love to talk to you more. If you do visit the the UK, please let me know, and I'll give you some pointers as to some secret places to go and see in Scotland, because I'm sure you'll like them.
Well, I have to say, I really enjoyed the time we spent together, and thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Nancy Bsales. So that was Nancy Bsales. It's interesting to learn how different regions and sectors respond to common issues. It's also great to hear from people outside the piloting/engineering side of aviation. The range of careers and opportunities in the sector is vast, so if you're thinking of a change in direction, why not give aviation a try? Thanks for listening, and fly safe. You have been listening to The Short Circuit, presented by Mike McLean and sponsored by Swift Aircraft with the hashtag Inspiring Aviation. This has been a Zoom Spike production.